All right.
We're recording.
We're recording. Okay, great. When I first heard it, it reminded me definitely of progressive rock. It fits, it could fit really easily in that, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, that sound world, at least to my mind. And I loved it. It's so crazy, completely arresting, and it's like 10 minutes in which I was like, I don't think there's a stopping point here. I just have to kind of listen through it all the way. I loved it. I loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit give us the story behind this piece?
Sure. I know a bassoonist here in town who plays contrabassoon with Indianapolis Symphony. And my band, Progressive Lenses, he owned a venue for a number of years that bands would go and play. And so Progressive Lenses wanted to go play there. And we worked out a deal that instead of me paying the fee to actually go and play there, that we would do a barter system. He said, I really want to have a piece for electric bassoon and wind ensemble that I can go and play. And I said, this sounds like a great idea. Let's go ahead and do that.
Yes.
And so the summer that I worked on this piece, I wrote a very conventional sounding bassoon concerto sort of thing. And then Mark and I got together and he brought over all of his pedals and he brought over his contrabassoon. So, and then we started playing with him. And then I thought, oh, hang on, I've written the wrong piece. I really need to treat him like a rock guitar player. And then really start to just say, all right, what is this going to be like then within a wind ensemble context? And at that point, I thought, okay, I can do this. And so I really thought I'm going to have a drum kit be part of the principal percussion all the way through. I'm going to have electric bass and piano really form a kind of rhythm section. And at that point, I started hearing sounds that were a kind of snarky acid jazz. And at that point, it really just flipped into Frank Zappa territory. And even though I'm not a huge Frank Zappa fan, as a person, that turn on a dime kind of stuff that he does so well and largely is written out, even for his parts, really became a really good model. And so at that point, I knew Mark was a really great improviser. So what I needed to do was I needed to write some things that were going to be very recognizable. And then there are other places where I just said, dude, you've got a D minor 7th chord for 8 bars. Have fun. By the way, this is what's happening in the band. You can hear these kinds of things, but you don't have to play off of them unless you want to, etc. And at that point, your bass and your drummer really become very, very part of the process of really just keeping track of everything. He did have a stipulation that he wanted to have contrabassoon be a part of it. And here in my studio, we ran his contrabassoon through a couple of my big bass amplifiers. And that was the coolest sound ever.
Oh, yeah.
Part of me wishes I would have been able to make the contrabassoon part longer, but just with the proportions of how everything worked at the piece, it really became, oh my gosh, amplified contrabassoon with distortion. It was just so over the top.
That is, it's awesome.
It really, in concert, put the band to shame. And the band was playing just big multi-percussion, loud, crazy. And the contrabassoon was just this thing that was just, which was marvelous. So yeah. Mark is a guy who's very familiar with this kind of playing. He is part of a sextet of bassoonists here in Indianapolis called Rock E Bassoon. and they play transcriptions of classic rock tunes.
Whoa.
Perfectly.
Okay. Yeah.
Perfectly.
Wow. Okay.
And I think we're the only town in the world that has a amplified bassoon ensemble. But it's brilliant, and Mark is a fantastic musician. And so that was the genesis of the piece.
How often does a bassoonist get to be a rock star, right? I mean, that's
Well, here in India, it happens all the time.
exactly. Yeah, apparently so. Wow. That's that. If I was a bassoonist, I'd want to be in Indianapolis.
Because of we were actually losing like 5 performances over the last year because of the pandemic, of course. But it's set up pretty well that a wind ensemble or a band that is, say, a good college band can play this. And even a couple of really good high schools have wanted to pick it up and bring Mark in to do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is one of my aesthetics in the last 10 years or so. I've been trying to bring in more pop elements and say, how can I do this? Another bassoon piece that I wrote is based on electric blues. And it's called Walking by Myself, and I wrote it for my colleague Doug Spaniel. Lots of stuff that you would hear in like Willie Dixon and Albert King, John Lee Hooker and people like that, just for solo bassoon, and also some improvisatory stuff with that. Another piece that I wrote for a horn player here was a piece of funk for horn and piano called Honk, which is great fun, and also brought in some improvisatory stuff for there as well.
Wow, that's great.
So yeah, I think it's now something that will become another kind of genre or technique that I can now say this is part of who I am as a composer. And some piece down the road will be, somebody will say, I want this kind of piece, and I go, oh, I think I know how to write that. But can I do a disco piece? Can I do a hip hop piece? Except hip hop is so in right now, I'm going to wait 40 years before saying I'm going to write a hip hop piece.